thank you for joining me. My name is Michael Vasquez, and you're listening to No Soundbites Allowed. This is a non-PC political program where we'll be looking at all of our rights, everything from the First Amendment, Second, right down to the 10th Amendment, and how it affects you in your daily life. We're going to, hopefully, from time to time, have guests in. We'll be speaking on all the various issues, but the most important thing is we're going to be speaking about how this affects you, how every one of these laws and these legislations proposed are going to affect you from our point of view. Now, you may not agree, and that's okay. We understand that. We don't want you to believe what we believe. We want you to understand what it is you should believe for yourself. So, I want you to sit back, listen to what we have to say. Hopefully, you'll come back again to hear even more. But most importantly, we want you to enjoy yourself, hopefully provoke some thought on some of the issues that we're going to be going over. And as we start off, and this is new for us, we hope for a little bit of your patience as well, because we know we're going to make some mistakes here, but we'll try and do our very, very best. So I thank you. I hope that you're going to have a great day, especially if you've listened to this and enjoyed it. And we look forward to hearing your feedback as well. So with that being said, let's go on to our first subject. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. My name is Michael Vasquez, and you're listening to No Soundbites Allowed, where we break down the politics of the day and issues going on around us, down to the local level, down to the individual. And I have a special treat today because I'm going to be speaking with former City Councilman John Cordisco. He's a resident in Binghamton. He's been involved in politics for about 19 years. He's the owner of Cordisco's Corner Store, and you'd be amazed. We've just been talking for about 15 minutes just about the wealth of information he has on Binghamton, politics, and just his opinions. We're going to have a great conversation. I think you're all going to enjoy it. Before I start off, John, may I call you John?
Sure. And I want to say thanks for having me. It'll be fun today.
Oh, yes. That I have no doubt whatsoever, especially from what we've already been speaking about. Now, I just want to go over a little bit of history for people who may not have new people who are just listening to the podcast, because we're national with this.
Right.
They may not know anything about you.
Well, I've been in business for 19 years on the north side of Binghamton. I own a convenience store and redemption center. I first ran for city council in 1995. I was elected by a very small 17 votes in 99.
Wow, that's tight.
And I was councilman from 2000 to 2007. I was term limited out. And in 2006, I was council president.
Which is impressive. That's a long time.
Full disclosure, I'm a former Democrat, now Republican. We can get into that if you want to later. Yeah. But I will say, in more full disclosure, when I was quite a bit younger, in my 20s, I would be considered what people call liberal today.
Oh,
and people ask me quite often why I changed, and I said, well, frankly, I just grew up.
Well, that's not uncommon, and yeah, I was going to bring that up, of course. But I think, tell me what you think about this. I think most of us, at least for myself, I grew up in a Democrat family. I grew up as a Democrat because that's what my family was. And then got around the world, was in the military, lived life, and suddenly said, well, no, I need to be a Republican, because that's really...
I think at one time, I have to make the difference between the old school liberals, we'll call the George McGovern liberals, back in the day, that now that their descendants are eating on college campuses, they're trying to get rid of all the college presidents that were the ultra liberals. Now the new liberals are trying to get, so they're eating their own, which is also good.
Oh, yes.
But I had more respect for the old school liberals because, frankly, I thought, even though I didn't agree with what they had to say, their intentions were good, and they were trying to help people and do the right thing.
Sure.
Today, after 40-odd years of liberal policies, anybody with two brain cells touching can tell that it's not working.
I think so,
A variety of topics. Just take a dart and throw it at a board and pick a topic, and it's just not working. So now, knowing it doesn't work, and you still continue to do it anyway, that's really sinister. And that's a lot different than the old school liberals. So that's why if I come across as really hard on today's liberals, it's not the liberal agenda, it's the new liberal agenda that's the problem.
That's a good distinction. And a lot of people don't think about that, because I have to say, I respect very deeply the older generation of liberals and Democrats who, while I, like yourself, didn't always agree with their agendas, but they were coming from it with an honest opinion.
Right.
An honest goal of trying to fix something, even though it was so wrong.
Not too long ago, I switched about 3 years ago to Republican. We'll say about 4 or 5 years ago, people would ask me what kind of Democrat I am. Because there's different kinds, just like Republicans.
Right.
And I would call myself a Harry Truman, John Kennedy Democrat.
Okay.
That's the way I would describe myself. And those are the Democrats I have respect for, which, of course, there's very, very few anymore left.
Nowadays, yeah.
I don't mean just by age, by ideology.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm agreeing with. It's the ideologies. I don't even know where Democrats are in the ideology. The main body of Democrats, I just don't even know where
I heard a quote one time, and I was watching some lectures on YouTube with some conservative speakers, and they seem to have the same theme, and I agree. The ultra-liberals today, or I'll call them leftists rather than liberals, seem to be getting more and more and more hysterical over smaller and smaller and smaller issues because they won. A lot of their agenda from the 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s were done. The equal for women and job opportunities, for gays and everything else. A lot of their agenda works. So, it's funny. Everybody hates a poor loser.
Right.
But there's worse. They're poor winners. And that's actually worse. They won, and now they don't know what to do. Whereas Republicans' mindset is, if it's working, leave it alone. Don't mess with it. Don't tinker with stuff.
Yeah. Leave it alone. It's functioning. Nothing's wrong. Okay, leave it.
You're never going to get perfection in any society. But I'll tell you the truth, there's a reason why millions of people are trying to get here. Not because we're a lousy country, because we're the best country.
Well, that's something I've said always, and I think you've heard me say that many a time. If we are so horrible as some would like us to be painted as, why do we have 12 million illegal immigrants in this nation that don't want to leave?
Right.
And about 1 million more every year trying to get in.
And legally and illegally.
True.
When Eastern Europe and Africa and Central and South America and a lot of the countries where they're coming from, a lot of the Asian countries, when they stop trying to apply for real citizenship or come over illegally, when they stop doing that, that's when I'll start to worry.
Exactly. That's the signal that says we've gone somewhere we shouldn't be.
Something's amiss and something's wrong.
Exactly.
We're painted around the world by liberals as this terribly racist and classist country and nonsense. Absolutely. No, the funny part is you'll see liberals tell how terrible it is and how crappy the system is and how, the patriarchy is putting them down. But if you talk to a person that's new to this country,
they love it.
They think, what are you talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Are you kidding me? Do you have any idea how good you have it here? And that's the problem with Americans, that we take this for granted where everybody else knows that this is the only place in the world, or one of the few places in the world, where you can actually do your own thing.
Oh, you've heard me say this before. By the way, for full disclosure for people, John and I are both in the Broome County Republican Party. We're both members on the Binghamton Republican Committee. So we do speak quite a few times, and he's heard me speak a few times. I think we're both pretty much two of the most outspoken people sometimes.
Well, yeah, if you see some of the old council meetings when I was a councilman, I was a Democrat back then, you'll see that I wasn't the shyest person.
No, and neither am I. But I've often said, I've lived in Moscow. I've lived in Tbilisi. I've lived in the Soviet Union when they had the a more obvious socialist structure. And for all these kids who think socialism is great, for all these people who think this Marxist idea is great, you've never lived there. I lived there for 1.5 years. I've seen the lines and the empty stores. They don't understand because they only lived here and they've never been somewhere else.
What they see is what Ben Shapiro does jokingly. If anybody watches any Ben Shapiro videos on YouTube, the guy's a sharp guy. 16 years old, he was in UCLA, nationally syndicated radio show at 17. Guy's pretty sharp.
Yeah, he is.
He says, all these Bernie supporters and the ultra-young socialist leftists, when they get out of college, they see that their lesbian dance theory degree isn't really earning any top dollars. And he says that jokingly, but the point is trying to be made is these guys now owe $100, $150, $200,000 in student loans, and they took some courses absolutely worthless in the real market.
Yeah.
And now they're mad because they owe all this money, and the best job they can get is $12 an hour. Well, that's not the system's fault. That's your fault.
Yeah, you went the wrong way. You know, you took the freedom to make a choice, and that choice doesn't pay.
Because all these young people were told by college professors and college presidents and through brochures and pamphlets they mail around the country to seniors in high school, get an education here, it's your ticket to prosperity, blah, 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 blah. So they were conned. Right. And now they owe all this money, and now they want somebody else to pay for it because their degrees are worthless. Well, you know, if you don't want to be part of the system, you know, it's just too bad.
Think about what you're doing and the consequences it's going to have. And that's what we've stepped away from as a nation. Consequences. Self-responsibility. You made a decision. There's a consequence to it. Live with that consequence.
Yeah, in essence, it's like getting a $200,000 business loan to open up a ski shop, and you open it up in Florida. And you're saying, well, why can't I make it? I shouldn't have to pay this money back. Well, because it doesn't work in Florida. You don't know how things work, obviously. So, and they're mad. And all the Bernie supporters, that's where they're really coming from, is the disillusioned youth that believe the leftists that just bloodsuck their money from them. What I find that ironic is, how can they side with these people? I mean, after a year, you think they will catch on. But young people are easily molded, so.
Always have been, but sadly, especially when you add in Common Core, where they're molding the way you think about something, which is my point of view, so I don't want to speak for you, but I see Common Core as molding the way people think, changing their thought process to more easily fit into this structure, this hypothetical structure that they're saying, well, no, we're going to do this. We keep doing social experiments, right, like Obamacare. Is a social experiment. You can't do that to a nation and expect it to work.
Well, that's the great trap of the leftists, is that the fact that just because you're always going to have inequality in money.
Give it.
I mean, ask any doctor, ask your primary care physician. 10% of all doctors were in the bottom 10% of the graduating class. It's just a statistical fact.
Sure.
Same goes for people. Just because there's inequality in money doesn't mean there was inequality towards them.
Right.
And that's the leftist agenda is, there has to be something wrong with the system because not everybody's making out.
Well, there's an old saying about that. You can't have all Indian chiefs. You have to have some workers. It's got to happen.
And like
That's
I said,
reality.
I don't think Bill Gates is evil. I don't think Steve Jobs is evil. I don't think Sam Walton's evil, even though there's some repercussions from having these big department stores. If you go back in history, Sam Walton started with one place down in Arkansas. I've seen the picture. I think it's still there. They keep it open on purpose because it's the first. I think they called it a Walden 5 and Dime or whatever it is. All these people start out with nothing. Steve Jobs can do that out of a garage. Bill Gates could barely pay for his own lunch when he had meetings. We can go through the list. The list
McDonald's,
is endless.
Oprah. Everybody starts at the bottom.
Yeah.
Builds himself up.
And it gets to a certain point with ultra leftists, and I don't use the word liberals. I want to make sure I use leftists.
Progressives is probably the best term.
No, that's kind of an oxymoron, but
true.
But the thing of it is, when you become successful in the United States financially.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to use this term that I think it's not swearing, but it kind of is. How much money do you have before you become a piece of crap? That's the problem. Now, Bill Walton family, when they only had $2 billion and 20 people in their family, were they evil then? Or are they evil now? Where's
that cutoff level?
Yeah,
right?
The leftists could never answer that question. When do you become...
Well,
when do you hate the society that you're in and you're just too rich and you don't care?
Well, that's a great point. Like, let's look at Hillary Clinton, who's worth, her and her husband, somewhere in the, let's call it $20-30 million range. Everyone loves her. Oprah Winfrey's worth $1 billion. Everyone, on the left, they all love her. But Donald Trump, who's about the same as Oprah, he's evil. Wait a minute, where's that cutoff?
Yeah.
1.2 billion? I mean,
where
did that go?
What are the rules here? What is the list of things that you use to chastise people in the media? Obviously, if you're a registered this or registered that, or you're a little more conservative, all of a sudden now you're the Antichrist. So if Oprah Winfrey gives $100,000 to some organization, she's a hero. Or that would be like me giving 50 cents to the Salvation Army. Who cares?
Yeah.
In comparison to what she has and what I have.
And her tax write-off.
And she's a hero.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing to me. I mean, it's
insane. But we can
anyway. We got sidetracked.
Yeah, and I'm sure we will again because this is the way we always have
I digress.
conversations.
You know,
and I'm not much better.
Yeah, originally you were going to ask me what topics to talk about, and I decided on the way over here tonight that why don't you just pick a topic? I'm not going to say that it's something that I looked up or rehearsed or whatever. You can just pick a topic that you want to talk about, and we can talk about that.
Well, before I even get to that, I do want to mention something that I think is important, and we've talked about this before. Chess. Thank you for joining me. This is Michael Vasquez at No Sound Bites Allowed, and we are listening to our special episode where we're speaking with John Cordisco, who is the former president of the Binghamton City Council. This is a special episode just with John, and we hope that you're enjoying it. We'll be right back in a moment with the continuation of this special episode. Thank you. You are an avid chess player. Now, people who know me, I love chess. I'm good. I'm not rated, but I've played and I can play well. You just saw my Go set downstairs,
right?
Which is one of the games I particularly love, and I'm absolutely horrible, but I love the game. Probably about as good as most Asian seventh players.
If you're a chess player or even a Go player in some other games, it's funny, at the world-class level, they consider it a sport.
Yeah.
But it's really ironic that you love to torture yourself. And that's in essence what you do.
Yeah.
It's funny. I run chess tournaments in the back of my convenience store.
Just had your 7th one.
Right, my 7th annual Broome County Championship. Yeah. Now, I played back in the 70s. I'll be 60 this November, so I'm old enough to remember Bobby Fischer in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started playing. And then when I got older and got married and had kids and all that, I kind of got away from it. And my last year on city council, I thought to myself, I spent a lot of time in politics and a lot of time being a councilman and a businessman. I'm going to go back to something I enjoy to do. So I tried to join the U.S. Chess Federation again and looking for tournaments to play in. And there were none in Binghamton. They used to have them in Syracuse, but those are gone now. So I closed my store on a Saturday, drove up to Syracuse, played in the tournament, and then thought to myself, there's got to be a better way. My store is closed on Sundays. Not for religious reasons, just I'm too old to work 7 days a week. And Sunday's the best day.
Right.
So I decided to have my own tournaments, and that's how I got started.
Oh, that's a good way to start.
But it's funny, people say you play 3 or 4 games in a day, and I saw some of the TV reporters that come from the county championship because it's a lot of press coverage. Right. I said, you're exhausted. And they laugh. They go, how can you be exhausted? I said, I want you to think of this. When you were in college or high school, and you took a 2-3 hour exam that was really hard, and then you got a 20-minute break, and then you did another one for 2 or 3 hours. And then you got a 20-minute break and did another one for 2 or 3 hours. And then you did another one. You did 4 exams in one day. Would you be exhausted at the end? And the girl said, well, I see your point.
Exactly. And, when I took the Series 7 exam, it's the same kind of thing. It's grueling. You can't tell me after that or, say, the Bar Association, you're going to be exhausted.
People don't realize how much your brain is really burning in calories and using energy just sitting there thinking. And that's the tie-in to why chess is so great for kids, small kids, and also seniors. I've seen study after study that says playing games like puzzles and chess and things like that when you're a senior, if you're genetically prone to Alzheimer's, that it slows that down. It won't stop it, but it slows down the progress the more you use your brain. And for kids, of course, their brains are fresh and clean.
Just builds it up.
It's great. And what's great about it is it's inexpensive. You don't need $2-3 million grants. A chess set and a board is less than $20, and you'll have it forever.
Yeah. That was the first board I had, was a little mom and pop starter chess set.
Right. And now with the advent of the internet, there's millions of free chess sites. Now, I play on 2. You pay so much per year, but even still. And it's great for kids because it learns discipline. But the important thing, I think, that young people don't realize today is that actions have consequences.
True.
Both good and bad. You sit there for 20 minutes thinking of your move, and it's a bad one. There's going to be consequences. And I think that in the back of children's heads starts something young that, listen, if you screw up,
well, it's good for
you're not going to get off the hook.
It's good for planning and thought and understanding the abstract of future plans and how they may or may not work out. It gives...
And the more you work on your chess, the more you study, especially when you're young because you're first starting, so the escalator only goes up.
Oh, yeah.
You see that a work ethic and study effort pays off. I mean, there's nothing to see. You see a little kid playing, and there's kids that play in my tournaments. That's the other thing. Adults and kids all play together in mine.
Oh, yeah.
To see a young kid, 8, 9, 10 years old, beat an older guy, and he walks away, and he's just got this smile like, and there's nothing in the world. There is no government agency or program that can give the kid that kind of confidence.
No, absolutely not. And we need more of those kind of events. We need more of those kind of things, I think, for our kids. It's great to play a video game, but it's not the same thing. It's not the same kind of thought going into it. It's not the same kind of planning going into it.
It's the game that's played, my understanding is, in the world, it's played by over 500 million people almost daily.
That's a lot.
Because you count the internet now.
Yeah.
And the internet has been a huge explosion. Like just earlier today, I was watching a YouTube channel for the Chess Club and Scholastic Center in St. Louis, which it's this investor guy that retired, has got quite rich. And he wanted to start a little chess club. You should see it now. It's 3 or 4 buildings, and they hold the U.S. championships there. And they have commentators now. They have a YouTube channel.
Oh, wow.
I was just watching day 2. They're playing in Belgium, rapid and blitz games.
Oh,
I'm not good at those. And there's 12 players, and it's like a sporting event.
Blitz can really. Blitz is tough, and I'm like I said, I'm okay, and I can play better. Well, I'd say better than the average person. Not good enough to be well rated at all. But Blitz tears me apart. I can't do Blitz. I lose instantly on that.
But it's fun. It's come around so much now. The advent of the internet, where I have my own chess channel myself, where I go over world class games and some of my own games. Unfortunately, well, actually, I'll be honest because I'm pretty tough on myself. And what I'll do is you'll take a game and you put it in your chess computer. Now, computers, the most powerful program in the world you can buy on the internet for $80.
Really?
At the highest level will beat or hold its own against the world champion. It's come that far.
Yeah.
But to use it as an analysis tool to show different moves, and I'll go over my moves and games in my YouTube channel, and I'm pretty hard on myself. Most chess players are.
Well, yeah.
They're very tough on themselves because they'll go over it later.
And suddenly see, oh my God, this was the move that changed the game.
And I say this quite often in my YouTube videos. I'll say, this is the point where I say to myself, what the hell were you thinking? I mean, how could you possibly do that? And it sounds like it's giving yourself a shot, but it's more of an educational thing that, you can make mistakes. You can pick it up and just learn from your mistakes and just don't do it again.
Well, that's the way it's always supposed to be. You're supposed to learn. You're supposed to learn from your mistakes, and that's what I like about chess. It gives you that learning experience because, to bring it back into politics, in a sense, is we see now so much of life is being geared towards this idea of there are no losers, and by consequence, winning is so much less. Winning is so much less important.
Because you don't want the people that lose to feel bad.
Feel bad. And learn from it.
So what we'll do is we're not going to make anybody feel bad. We're just going to make everybody feel fair. It's okay. I had a nice time.
No,
that's not quite. I mean, can you imagine if they did that in the Olympics?
Well, I imagine if they did that with the Wright brothers. Oh. It didn't fly, but don't feel bad. You tried. Let's scrap the idea of playing.
It's the hypocrisy of it that you'll watch the ultra leftists. We'll say watch the Olympics. I like the Olympics especially. Yeah. And you'll see a lot of the leftists in there, and they're screaming for their country or the person that they like. They beat the other ones. I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's not how you really think.
Yeah,
you want everybody to get a trophy in Little League, whether they win or not.
Yeah, try that on the World Cup. I don't think that's going to work.
They stop the World Cup when it's 1-1 and say, by the way, you know what? We're just going to call it a tie. Nobody's upset. Are you kidding me? They tear apart the stadium.
Destroy stadiums.
And these are the same people, of course, that are saying, well, it's unfair to have a winner in Little League Baseball because we don't want the teams that don't do well to feel bad. I mean, come on. I mean, if you're going to think that way, at least be consistent.
Well, you can't be consistent with that.
They can't because the way they think makes no sense.
Yeah.
You can't have consistency in chaos.
No, it makes no sense. It goes nowhere. And that's why I wanted to bring up the chess, because I think it's important to remind people, especially in the environment in politics in the world right now, of this no winners, no losers, which is ridiculous, that we need to say, hey, here's something very simple, very cheap, that's such a benefit to kids. And there's a winner and there's a loser.
I felt really good after I had my first county championship, and there was a lot of TV and press coverage for that. I got a letter a couple of weeks.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry, it's my puppy. He's making a very bad sound here. Hold one moment.
You want to be interviewed?
All right. Sorry about that, John. It's for people who don't know, I own he's a half Scotty, half Bichon, and he was outside and suddenly realized that no one else was around him and he freaked out. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we're still on. Okay.
I just wanted to say I felt really proud of the fact that a couple of weeks after my first Broome County Championship, I got a letter from a retired SUNY professor. I'm trying to remember what, I think it might have been Oneonta. I don't remember exactly, one of the SUNY colleges. Mm-hmm. And I was really surprised and pleased both that he basically said, it seems that most of the good things in the world come from individual effort, that people that do things. And he was implying that we didn't apply through a 501c3 to get a $3,000 grant through somebody else to set up a chess tournament. Mm-hmm. I did it on my own, and other people that were interested came. And he was making the point that most of the good things in the world, that's where they come from, not these crazy programs that it makes everybody feel good, but really doesn't do anything.
Well, the first schools, the first roads, the first public works were all funded by individuals. Railroads were created by the railroad barons. Name pretty much any institution, its origin wasn't from government. It was from individuals. Well, now, there's good and bad with that, I give you.
Yeah, but that's the other thing, too. My father, who was a lifetime Republican, said taxes are funny to pay for a lot of these programs and things. There's no face on the taxes. Now, you ask any young person now, where does money come from? Mm-hmm. And government. And they say the government. They have no clue that those are real people with real faces and real lives that are paying those taxes to do these things. And that's the other part is it doesn't have a face.
True.
And so a lot of these things, the government pays for this, the government pays for that. Well, the government technically has no money.
No, it all comes from us at some point.
And that's what I think people don't realize. It comes from somewhere. And they don't realize it's from their aunt, it's from one of their parents, or it's your uncle down the street, or the kid you grew up with and went to high school with. They're all paying. And it's hard sometimes to work that much and pay these taxes for all these programs. And I don't think people really realize that.
I can tell you, I realize it all the time. My property, right next door to it, as you saw, I've got an abandoned building that's been there for like 7 years. And my taxes go up in the region, in Binghamton area. It was $200. It keeps increasing. It's a ridiculous rate of increase. And I still have an abandoned building next to me. I've been here for about 10 years.
Even at the crazy. 2% cap by the state of New York, one guy described it as getting pecked to death by ducks. It doesn't kill you right away, but over time, it just wears you down and wears you down and wears you down until you're finally finished off. That's what he calls getting pecked to death by ducks.
I like that. That's a good term. Because that's exactly what it is. We see that all over the place. It's in our city, in our state, which, the state's corrupt. Thank you, Governor Cuomo.
Well, human beings are corrupt. We just take out ads. We're a little more, we make no bones about the fact.
We're honest, yeah. It's incredible. There's a lot. You are a wealth of information. Not enough people.
I might be a wealth of opinions. I'm not so sure on the information, but we'll find out.
One goes with the other. One goes with the other, and and I think people learn from that. I don't think enough people have really delved into the information that's available. I think it shows in just so far in the interview. We've covered a huge spectrum of stuff, and we're just barely.
Oh, for me, this is just shooting the breeze. This is just, and it's just funny how people say all the time on all these different topics, how do we remember all this stuff? And I'll say, well, as I get older, you've got to have a really good memory to lie. And my memory isn't what it used to be, and it's a lot easier to remember the truth.
Absolutely.
You don't have to worry about remembering the truth. But lies, you've got to be a lot more sophisticated to have more memory, and I don't have time to waste on lies, so.
That's the best way. There is something I wanted to also bring up. And you were just the other day, you were talking to a reporter at NPR, and they had an interesting discussion about that. The subject, which I've written about, some people have read my work over at the Binghamton Political Buzz at theexaminer.com. Please check it out. Was a subject I've gone over since 2009. The Northside grocery store.
What people refer to nationwide in the big cities as food deserts.
Yeah. And we've had that well before. Actually, it was since 1996 on the North Side there's just been no grocery store. And pretty much every administration has said, in their time on the local government, has said they're going to bring one in. We hear talk about it. Nothing happens. NPR was talking to you about it.
Right.
How'd that go?
It went very well. She was a nice kid. And I say kid, I'm almost 60, so anybody under 30 is a kid to me. But I was blunt but not rude. I'll just use the north side of Binghamton as an example, but this is like this in a lot of cities in the country, especially the bigger ones, the food deserts. It comes down to the fact that you're in a box. There's not enough money to support a full-size grocery store. I don't think people are beginning to imagine how many millions of dollars are involved just in fixtures and equipment. That's not even counting payroll and any produce you have to throw out, any waste you have to throw out. All comes off the bottom line. And they all think that these business people are these greedy guys that have rooms filled with money and we roll around in it because, it's just not true. It's just not true. And even, we'll say for some of the bigger chains like Kroger in the South and Publix, and they're around, Price Chopper.
Right.
They're around. And
Mid-side
it's a tough hustle, and it's incredibly competitive. Now, I try to explain to her some of the problems with the north side, and this is just the north side. There's other cities or sections. There's just not enough income.
Thank you for joining me. This is Michael Vasquez at No Sound Bites Allowed, and we are listening to our special episode where we're speaking with John Cordisco, who is the former president of the Binghamton City Council. This is a special episode just with John, and we hope that you're enjoying it. We'll be right back in a moment with the continuation of this special episode. Thank you.
And all the social programs in the world and all the increasing of food stamps won't change that. Because give you an example, I try to explain, I have a convenience store.
Right.
And I get trade magazines all the time. And what they have is what average customer spends per transaction.
Okay.
Now, I have what they call inside sales, which means I have no gas pumps.
Right.
And it's the average nationwide is X. And in this area, it's basically 1/3, sometimes 1/2 the national average. Well,
that's huge.
The leftists go, well, we still need something because they want a grocery store because of feelings. But feelings and reality doesn't mix together.
No, never.
I want to be 6'4" and have blonde hair. There's just some things you can't have. And I try to explain to her that means that you have to spend between 2 and 3 times the normal payroll for the exact same amount of money.
You can't do that.
You can't do that. And that's the only side of town without a bank, a proper bank. I think there's one credit union and a few ATMs. There isn't enough money. And there really is no solution to that because people don't realize, even the leftists, if you corner them and give them some truth serum, will tell you government cannot create jobs.
That's
Ever.
True.
Never.
Never happens. Obama, we saw it with the shovel-ready jobs.
I don't care. I don't consider hiring, say, for the federal or state or county level government creating jobs. You're just filling the role of government. I don't see that as the same. You stay out of the way, or you have an area where things are more likely that a person will invest all those millions into something. Mm-hmm. That's where it really comes from. And they use the example, well, you know what? There's 5,000 people on the north side, and everybody has to eat. So that means X amount of person will spend so much per month, and that's how much the store will make. This doesn't work that way. People go where they want to go.
Right. Always do.
If that was the case, then I'd be doing almost 20,000 bottle returns a day if everybody on the north side came to my bottle redemption center. It just doesn't work that way.
We wish it did. Yeah.
And there's the other side of the coin is tax incentives and breaks through either state, local, or federal. So here am I, a person that's paying really high business taxes on my property,
right,
non-residential, commercial property. I'm subsidizing now people that are going to compete against me. And that's really unfair.
Oh, that's wicked when you think about that.
Well, that's exactly what it is. They say, well, all the money comes... But what really comes down to is, say if I got a $20,000 grant to open up a convenience store and put it next door to one that's there now, and I get all these tax incentives to do it, and the grant money, and we all know grants don't get paid back.
Right.
If I was the guy next door, I'd be pretty mad.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I'm paying a ton in commercial property taxes, and you're not paying hardly any. Maybe 10 cents on a dollar. And that's where the leftists want to do. They want to give all these tax breaks because to make it a level playing field. Well, it's not a level playing field because the store can't be supported. And I got a lot of grief for that when I was a councilman because it's the truth.
No,
And,
but I agree with that. I recently was doing a story on, and this is another one of my long-term stories I've been following since 2013. You may not know about this because it's up north in Utica.
I lived in Utica for 2 years, so I know a little bit about it.
Griffith Air Force Base. New York State became the one of the 6 drone testing sites in the nation, and that's at the Griffiths.
Mm-hmm.
And what a lot of people don't realize, and I just did a follow-up story on it, we just spent $250 million for the drone testing site. It has 11 jobs. It's worse. Not only is there 11 jobs, only 6 are permanent. 5 will eventually show up. At some point in the future, we don't know when.
Well, I'm sure that the money they spent wasn't on payroll.
$23 million per job. No, it's not all on. Obviously, they're building some stuff, but I mean, realistically, that's just insane.
Well, was that one? I wish I knew the congressman's name. It was many years ago, more like 20-odd years ago. They said, $1 billion here and $1 billion there, it starts adding up the real money after a while.
Well, before we started hitting trillions. And the 19 trillion we're at now.
I'll give an example. Just recently on the north side of Binghamton, I saw in the newspaper they're using about $4,300. I'm assuming comes from the Community Development Block Grant money for vans to come around the north side with produce and fresh vegetables and things like that for people, because there's no grocery store. And I think to myself, this is insane. We spend the Vines program or any other, what they call it nationwide. It's everywhere. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in our federal tax money.
Oh, yeah.
Either directly or indirectly from the feds, either through block grant money or direct grants, or feds gives to the state and the state gives grants. It trickles. It comes from the feds originally. I thought to myself, that's insane. Now, I have a convenience store, and food stamp use is extremely high in these low-income areas because of their income.
Right.
And they have small children and things like that. And I said to the young lady from WSKG, the local public TV station that did the interview for NPR with me, we have a huge obesity problem in this country. She said, oh, absolutely. And you could tell she was in, nice, decent shape. You could tell she, ate well and worked out. And, know. And I says, if you have a food stamp card, now it's a federal program administered by the state. So each state can tweak their rules.
Right.
Then I can walk into any store, convenience store, grocery store, anywhere, and buy Doritos, Mountain Dew and soda, candy, chips, you name it.
Yeah.
I find it to be absolutely insane. But what we'll do instead is, instead of trying to control that and helping people, it's not chastising people, it's helping them not to do that. We're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a program to teach them how to eat properly and fresh produce and low-fat this and low-fat that and exercise. I says to the girl, why don't we just say this? And Albany would never do it. As of January 1st, 2017, these items are no longer available with your EBT card.
We did that with cigarettes and alcohol. Why can't we just expand it? Yeah.
You can't. You can buy those all you want to. You just can't use federal money to do it.
Well, that's what I mean.
Well, the liberals went crazy. It's discriminatory towards low-income people. Give me a break.
No. On one hand, we're saying you should eat healthier. On the other hand, we're saying, but go buy the junk food.
So it gets to the point where the hypocrisy is so incredibly obvious that obviously the leftists that control a lot of this aren't really looking out for the people. Now, I think the number one reason why it won't happen tomorrow, well, besides the fact we live in New York State, that's a given, but we'll take the New York State and just throw it aside. They're going to lose votes.
Yeah.
They're going to lose votes. So people continue to, and that's the other thing too, people don't realize with the food stamps in New York State especially. I'm not sure about the rest of the country, but I know it's true in New York. You're sales tax exempt. Now, say it was Halloween time and you bought $100 worth of candy at Walmart.
Right.
You would be charged $108 because it's 8% sales tax in this county.
Right.
The person behind you with an EBT card would only be charged $100. It's
that
against the law to charge sales tax. So that's a lot of revenue that the state and local municipalities are missing out on.
Yeah, that $8 adds up per transaction.
And they say, well, it'll be a huge deal trying to change all that. Nonsense. The big, huge stores all have barcodes.
Yeah,
it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. You just take those barcodes out. When they get swiped, you can't buy food stamps with those. And the other thing was, well, it's going to be really tough for local economies when all that money's not being spent. I said, wait a minute. I'm a single mother with 2 small children, and I received SNAP, EBT. I'm not sure what the politically correct term is this week.
It doesn't matter.
And I can't buy chips, soda, candy, any of that stuff. I'm not going to spend the money. I'm going to leave the money on my card. Well, we know that's not going to happen.
No. They're going to buy something
and
else.
That's their argument. It will hurt local economies. They're going to buy something else.
Yeah.
Maybe a bag of apples, God forbid.
Peanut butter and jelly and some bread.
I mean, well, and there's some in Albany that try to change the law where you can't buy crab legs and ribeye steak. I'd rather have them have that than a bag of potato chips and a soda.
Yeah, at least that's food rather than...
At least it's food. At least it's quality food. And I've been running into so much opposition. And what you get is this. Oh, you hate poor people. You're prejudiced. You're racist. You're this, you're that. No, I'm really looking out for the people that are receiving these benefits, and you're making them feel better to collect their votes. Who's really evil?
Yeah. It's they feel good, but they're not good. You know?
And you get, don't tell me what to do with my money. Well, it's not yours. And I'm not asking to say, come into my store and kiss my ring and say thank you for paying taxes. That's not what I mean at all.
No, it's not about that.
You take the responsibility that we live in a great country, and a lot of these food stamp programs and like that are meant to help people.
Temporarily.
That's
the key word for me.
I really don't have a problem with the fact that if I'm we'll say a young couple with a couple of kids and we both work, they receive food stamps and like that. I don't have a problem help subsidizing them get through it. They both make an effort.
Right.
But it's funny, now it's coin of the realm. I mean, I've had teenage girls in my store. I overhear stuff like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, I can imagine.
And one girl just had a baby. She's young, 16, 17. And the other girls were chastising her for living at home and not collecting welfare and calling her all kinds of names. And she's got to be stupid. You can get your own apartment. You can move out of your parents' house. You can be on your own. And that's the way what's going on. And it gets to the point where a lot of these programs now were really meant well. From what we talked about earlier, the old liberals, the George McGovern liberals. It's caused unforeseen, well, I think foreseen consequences, but even for some unforeseen consequences. It's not working.
No.
Okay. It seems that just to admit in a general discussion, even publicly, that it's not working is the end of Western civilization. And if we don't admit that it's not working, how in the hell are we going to solve any of the problems?
Yeah. If you can't address the fact that it's a problem, you can't even start to figure out how to solve it.
It was meant to help people. Now it's causing more harm than good. And it's just a matter of opinion. They say, well, that's your opinion. You're a conservative guy. No, it's like saying it's my opinion that the world is round. Okay? It's just a statement of fact. It's nothing to do with opinion.
Yeah.
It's causing more harm than good. I mean, here's a scenario in the real world. I'm a 16-year-old girl. I have 2 kids. Now I'm 18. The way it works is you receive welfare, food stamps, Medicaid, all kinds of other stuff.
Right.
As long as those kids are under 18. I'm not sure the cutoff you go to college or not. I'm not sure how it works. Now here you are, 18-year-old girl. Let's fast forward the clock. Now you're 36 and your kids are older and they're not receiving those benefits anymore. Who's going to hire her? You have no work history.
Yeah.
None. Now, when I used to be a manager in an apartment store years ago, we used to hire people. The girls could get away with big employment gaps because they said they took care of small kids.
Right.
But the guys really couldn't. Because I'll tell you the truth, this is the way employers think. If there's a big gap, they think one of 2 things. Either you're in jail, or you're doing stuff illegally on the side and just earning money. And both of those are unacceptable for an applicant, and you go to the next one.
Right.
That's the reality of the world.
Of course.
No EEOC codes, no this, no that. These are real people looking at applications.
And they're making a real conclusion.
So let's have a program where you're a person that's have 0 job skills, 0 experience. Let's give the employer tens of thousands of dollars to hire you. Meanwhile, while the same person, the same age, did the right thing, wait till at least they could afford the kids or at least be married or have a committed partner, minimum, and have children, did the right thing, they get nothing.
Where's the parity? Where's that equality there? Yeah.
Where is, we talked about chess earlier, where is the actions have consequences? You know what kills me, and I heard a couple of stories and they're right, how you'll be in college and it'll be the single mother that put herself through college and everybody in the class is just wonderful. But you created your own problem.
Yeah.
That would be like if I just took a hammer and smashed my foot to pieces and then walked around with a cast on when I was in college. I said, look at that guy. You know, he's got physical disabilities and he still managed to get here every day. Well, I did it to myself.
Yeah.
Now, people make mistakes. I've made tons of mistakes in my life.
Well, that's part of life.
But I never expected anybody else to pay for them.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just money-wise either. I mean socially or emotionally. I've always believed me. I've always paid probably, I can think double for every mistake I've ever made. Everybody thinks that, but it gets to the point where it's just too easy. And, it's harmful to these, especially the young girls.
Oh, I think so. Thank you for joining us at No Sound Bites Allowed for our special episode with John Cordisco, the former president of the Binghamton City Council. And we're having an exciting time here. But obviously, this is a long discussion. It's going over a little bit longer than we expected. And you're going to see that this is the end of part 1. Now, you're going to see part 2 where we pick this up. And believe it or not, folks, we have a conversation that's just as long as this one. And I believe it's just as exciting and interesting, perhaps even more so. So we ask you, please come back, check out the second part of our conversation with John Cordisco in Binghamton and all the subjects that we're going to be going over, which I think we will find quite interesting. Please like and share this episode if you've enjoyed it so far. And if you can, donate so that we can get more episodes like this, more times to invite various politicians